Thanks so much for joining me this morning, and thanks to Eileen. That was a really important webinar. I'm going to have to go back and look at all the chat notes. So I'll be brief in my background, just a little bit about me. So I'm Julie Mann. I'm an ESL teacher at Newcomers High School, which is in Long Island City. And I've been working with English language learners for over 22 years. I have recently started bringing mindfulness and yoga into my work, which is why you see me practicing yoga with my students. And I also always bring human rights issues into my classroom. And though I'm not going to get to read everything, I would love it if you could type in the chat a little bit about who you are, your name, your location, what you do, what your passions are. I won't read them now, but I promise to go back and read them. And it would be great if people could share. And a little bit about my school. So Newcomers High School is located in beautiful Long Island City, New York, which is in Queens. We have students from 57 countries speaking 29 languages. 100% of our students are English language learners, and it's considered a high need school, which refers to the demographic background of our students and the fact that 100% of them qualify for free breakfast and free lunch. And again, in the chat box, I can't look at it now because we are kind of pressed for time, but I would love to know what your connection is to immigrants. So maybe you work with them, maybe you are one, maybe both. So if you can share that, that would be great. I'm seeing lots of awesome things pop up to my left, which I'm dying to look at, but can't. I'm pressed for time right now. And yesterday, Denzel created a Padlet with this quote, one of my favorite quotes by Mother Teresa. If we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to one another. And I asked you all to think about the connection between this quote and the current administration's stance towards immigrants. And I loved what I was reading. Again, I'm not going to be able to read it all, but I encourage you all to go back to that Padlet and see the beautiful comments if you haven't already. People talking about the need for kindness and acceptance and love and how these key things are being forgotten. But we're all human, and this is so critical in terms of creating a safer place for our students and ourselves. So thank you all for sharing there. So today I'm going to be talking about the post-election advocacy work that I've done with my students this year. Work around some Southern Poverty Law Center reports, the Antidefamation League's current events classroom, letters that we wrote to Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, a visit from Dory Katz, who is a hidden child and Holocaust survivor, an immigration advocacy day, and work that we did with Luke Nephew, who's a peace poet. So I hope that's good for you. I'm going to go through things quickly, but again, everything is available to you. I created a Dropbox folder. All the links in my PowerPoint are live, so you have access to everything. So forgive me for going kind of fast, but I want to respect everyone's time, and these are all yours to peruse at your leisure. Speaking of which, yesterday we also created a Padlet, thanks Denzel, with a link to this short film, Young Immigrants Share Their Stories, which is about a Building Bridges project I did, now it's been quite a while. I think it was from 2011 or 12. I can't remember when that film was made, but the project has continued, though the students have changed. And I appreciate all the beautiful posts in Padlet. Some of you asked about what questions I used or for the interviews, and all of that also is in another Dropbox folder. I'll be talking about this project later on today. So everything you need is there. And people raised some interesting questions about how to do this safely and make sure there's equal access, and how it's important for these connections to be fostered over a long period of time, not just a one-off. And I really appreciate all your comments, and I encourage you again to go back to the Padlet and read some of those. They were great. So thank you, everyone. So yeah, so getting to what we worked on this year. These two links are live, as I said, so you can have access to these reports. The Southern Poverty Law Center produces such great work. And they created two really critical reports right after the election. One was called The Trump Effect, and one was called 10 Days After. And in my human rights class, instead of focusing outward, as we often do, this year, our focus became my students, their families, their rights, and how to protect themselves. And in the 22 years I've been teaching, I've never quite been in this situation where I truly was fearing for my students' lives so tangibly. So we used these resources, we read the reports, we analyzed them, we connected them to the students' own experiences, and use them as fodder for some action steps that we were going to take. Next, I work really closely with the Antidefamation League. Their current events classroom, is extraordinary. All of these are live links to some of the materials that I used and expanded upon. Ginny Spiegler is the author of all of these lessons. I work really closely with her. And what often happens is she'll send me these lessons and I'll use them and modify them for L's. So any modifications that I made are also in that Dropbox folder, which is part of this presentation at the end. But so we did reflections on the election itself. We looked at work around sanctuary cities. New York is one of them, what that meant, and threats to sanctuary cities, as well as hate symbols that have been cropping up so rampantly. And actually, the Anti-Defamation League created a blog post about our work. But what they did is they kept our school and my students' identifying information out of it so that it would be safe. Oh, you're not hearing me? I'm cutting in and out. How's the sound now? Denzel, can you just let me know if you're hearing me okay? Audio fine, audio fine. Okay, I'm going to move on. Sorry, I'll hold this just in case. So again, all of these links are live, and if you want to read the blog post, that's live as well. Next step, we wrote letters. So initially, the students had written letters to then President-elect Trump. So immediately after the election, we had written letters to Trump. But then in talking to my principal and my students, we felt that we just didn't feel safe sending those letters. So, but the students had worked really hard on these letters and they felt strongly that somebody should read them. And we decided to write to one of our allies, Attorney General Eric Schneiderman. We also wrote to Assemblyman Francisco Moya, who's a local assemblyman, but you're probably all familiar with New York Attorney General Schneiderman. And what was great is that he actually wrote individual letters back to each and every one of my students and me. So they really felt like they had agency and they felt like there was somebody out there who was committed to protecting them. So that was great. And I pulled some of my students' voices. I'm just going to read a bit from each, not each letter, just a couple of them. So one student wrote, I'm a Mexican high school student who has been feeling really concerned and sad about the situation this country is currently going through. I'm writing this letter because I want to express what I think about all the things that are happening in the country and how I feel here as an immigrant. Lately, I can feel the tension among the people in my community. I try to stay positive, but it is hard to do when everything around you makes you feel like hope is running out. I don't understand why Mr. Trump and many of his followers think those awful things about immigrants. I would like to think it is because they had a bad experience with one, and if it is that, I want to apologize for it. I'm still faithful about the situation because I know that we, the immigrants, or at least most of us, are not doing anything wrong, and I dare say this is because I see throughout the day all the endeavors immigrants like me do on a daily basis. I really want people to understand that we did not come here to steal jobs or to do them wrong. We came here because we were trying to escape from the situation our countries are facing. Things like poverty, wars, and corruption, among many other things that even I may not know about. We came here because we innocently thought that this country was the right place to accomplish our dreams, that this is the only thing we want, just like everyone else in life. We just want to have a better life. And another student wrote, I worry for my sister who wears a hijab and goes to an American school. I worry about what the students in her school say about her because she is a Muslim, as I am, and I worry that they give her the terrorist look. When I, the one who lives with her, knows that she is a cute little angel who loves her school and education like anybody else who is not wearing a hijab. And lastly, I am an immigrant, and I am proud of that because it is not easy to leave everything you know and everyone you love behind. It was hard to pass through the feelings of alienation when you are in a whole new place. As an immigrant, I came here seeking for safety and to reach my goals. I was scared for the change, but my mind was clear. I wanted to graduate and be appreciated for my effort. I want to make my mom proud by studying for my future. I want to become a human being with values and a promising future. I chose to come to the United States because it was the dreamland instead of staying in Ecuador. In other words, I rather preferred to explore and search for chances that could help me than stay in my comfort zone where I had everything, but it was not enough. I took a risk and half a year before I was satisfied. However, it seems these wishes are going far away and are replaced with worries. I am studying to succeed, but the fear of one day being treated as a criminal is causing a lack of motivation. Lately, the deportations are occupying the first place in every immigrant's mind, and not in a good way. It is affecting our health because it is stressing us. Someone said, where do souls go to hide after deportation? Just imagine the shame a deported person who would feel when they come back to their families without getting what they dreamed of, without an A for courage, but with an F for fool. So you can see this range of voices, and I mean, I'm sure these are themes you're hearing over and over again, but it was really palpable this year. So next I want to talk about this incredible experience. Later on in the term, I invited Dory Katz, who you see her here in the photo, a hidden child and Holocaust survivor, and an immigrant to the United States as well, to come and speak with my students. I was able to do this through Facing History. Again, the link is live. That takes you to their survivor program. I had felt that the rhetoric around immigration, post-election, in particular the travel ban and increase in ICE raids and deportations, was so reminiscent of the language towards Jews before World War II and post-World War II. Dory Katz agreed, and luckily she came to my class to share her story and hear about my students' experiences. Here you see her comforting my student as she cried, not only because she was so moved by Dory's story, but also because her experience is so similar today. Dory was hidden when she was 3 or 4, and she didn't see her mother except one time for several years. She and her mother were refugees and undocumented immigrants at many points in their journey. My students shared with Dory that many have not seen their family for years, or that they were separated when they were very young, not seeing their parents for up to 14 years in some cases. Almost every student in my class broke down during this session, and yet also reflected later on how her experience was so inspiring and encouraging. It was extremely powerful. I can't really articulate that day. I get chills when I think about it, but nobody left feeling unmoved. It was really extraordinary. So this is a quote from Dory Katz's book, Looking for Strangers. Again, the link is live. She said, one day when my mother came home from work, 2 men who identified themselves as plainclothes police officers were waiting for her at her doorstep. They asked to see her papers. Papers? What papers? Asked Golda. She made up an elaborate story about her citizenship papers, but she knew she was caught. The policeman discovered that not only was she not a citizen, but she had no legal papers whatsoever. And that's from her memoir. Such a similar story, and yet it's like we never learn these lessons. So next, we had an immigration advocacy day. So some of you saw the film about, maybe you didn't all see it, but about our work with the St. Luke School. So that's a partnership that I've had for many, many years, and it continues to this day. And this year, on the day that we met up with our buddies, and you can see this nice photo of all the buddies together. But this year, we focused on immigration when we met up together. We did several things. So one of the things that we did was we had Roger Archer, who's a parent of a student in the St. Luke's class, so not my class, but the St. Luke's class. He's a New York police detective, and he's also an immigrant. And he came to talk about New York City policies, what the NYPD is doing to protect immigrants as the sanctuary city, as well as what ICE is doing and how those things differ. And it was really powerful. It was very eye-opening. The students were really reluctant to speak. They were quite scared, but at the same time, he was able, as you see there, him giving everybody a pound, he was able to break the ice, no pun intended there, and help them feel safe, ask questions, know their rights. So that was really important. Another thing that we did with our buddies was to do a poetry and poster advocacy campaign. So we created spoken word poetry with this guy, Luke Nephew, who I'm going to talk about in a minute. And we made posters and we shared them all. And you can see some of those immigrants. We get the job done, a little quote from Hamilton there, because they're all teens obsessed with Hamilton. And part of a poem that was written, I have the right to be with my family. I have the right to sing out loud. I have the right to dream. It was really fun, empowering, inspiring. Here you see Luke Nephew. Again, that link is live, and I really encourage you all to check out Luke Nephew. He's such a powerful man. During the Black Lives Matter movements, he created a poem that turned into the song for the movement called I Can't Breathe. And that link takes you to all of his work. He created a new poem when the raid started. He's actually an Ecuadorian immigrant himself, and he created a poem called No Ban, No Wall, We Want Freedom for Us All. And we were all chanting that when he came to work with us and create spoken word poetry. In class, he came back to my class several times, and in class we created poetry about my students' immigration experience right now, which was really cathartic for them, very powerful. And one of the poems was actually published anonymously, again, to keep my students safe, but it was published as part of the New York Times Learning Network. They were doing a piece around immigration and things that teachers have done in their classroom. And so that link is live in the, there's a link to that, in the Dropbox folder, the New York Times blog. But here's the poem. It's called Reality. And I'll just read it to you. If I had 1 minute to tell the world what it's like to be an immigrant teenager, I would tell them that life is hard. You face obstacles all the time. Everything has to be calculated, and loneliness has become my life partner. I'm scared to get attached to people simply for fear that I might never see them ever again. I'm scared something could happen to my parents and I won't be able to be by their side. I feel weak sometimes. I feel like giving up all the time, and I feel vulnerable. I feel like I need to put up a wall to protect myself from getting hurt. I'm scared of the future. I'm scared of what the world is going to be like when I grow up. I'm scared I won't be able to tell my kids that this is a good and beautiful place to live. And I'm scared I won't be able to survive. So that's the poem. And I'm going to stop here because I've been talking and talking and talking. And now it's time for all of you to get to talk to each other. I'm so excited that 4 chat rooms were set up. And so here we go. What you're going to be doing when you break into your chat rooms is you're going to talk about the various things I've done at my school, what you like, maybe what you don't like, what you can implement, how you might adapt it to your teaching level, any changes you'd make. I'm going to float back and forth between the rooms. They're going to be moderated by all the brilliant facilitators here. So have fun. See you soon. I just wanted to kind of think out loud about the educational benefits I saw in my setting from these activities. So firstly, I feel like it gave my students an opportunity to learn from and with each other. Also, it's always really important to me to show students that they have agency and that their experience matters. And we found a way for the students to safely speak truth to power. Safely is critical. And in doing so, I did my best all year to help my students feel safe and supported, at least while with me in school. These are really unusual times. And in the photo there, you see one of the other poems the students created. I have the right to stay confident, happy, free, kind, grateful in this country. And then they put a question mark. So just showing where they're at. We want a city full of happiness, where there is no fear, where people respect each other, where everyone is equal. Together, we can make the world a great place. Rise up, create, discover anything, stop hate, have fun, see the world. And in terms of larger benefits, and there we see some buddies with their poster about equality. I really feel like this type of work helps to educate others about our students' experience. So sharing it on blogs, sending it out, even if anonymously. Building a bridge, always my goal, between immigrants and their new communities. Breaking stereotypes about who immigrants are and why they come here. And giving others a chance to help, because many people want to help and they don't know how. So those are some of the larger benefits I saw. So with that, what I would love to do right now, at least for a few minutes, is give you all a chance to maybe share questions that you might have for me. And I'll just read them out loud and speak to them a bit. And you can always email me. What do you think of implementing anti-racist or equity pedagogies into the classroom, bringing the People's Institute into the classroom? Yeah, I don't know that particular organization, but I think that that's extremely important. It's a great idea, Courtney.
So I know that some of the questions out there were that a lot of the work you're doing is very emotional, which is fantastic. It really, emphasizes empathy and reality in the classroom. But how do you get some of your more reluctant participants to, work with you?
So that's a great question. The thing is, I make a lot of space. So students are not forced to do any of this. There are always options. So if a student doesn't want to write a letter, they don't have to write a letter. And if a student doesn't want to engage in the spoken word poetry, then we find something else for them to do. I mean, some of the things like reading the SPLC reports or reading the documents in class, those are requirements for everyone. But when it's something very emotional, I actually didn't have any students who wanted to sit out this term. They were all really engaged at varying levels. But in the past, there have been times when students have said, this is too hard for me, and that's okay. So then they don't. I make space. Do I seek support in the classroom? Do I personally seek support? Well, for me, I don't know. Here's the thing. I will say this. So I am a mindfulness teacher and a meditation teacher, and that has been critical. It was critical for me. I'm a widow, and after my husband died, it was critical for me. And it's something that I've brought into the classroom for the past 3 years. And so it's something that the students and I engage in on a daily basis. So that's one thing. As far as support for the students in terms of psychological counseling, all of those kinds of things, the school brought in extra resources this year, although I think they could do a lot more. But we did start getting extra counselors in for students who were really having anxiety issues. And there's been, I'm really keen on making sure my classroom is a very safe space. I will say that there was a lot of crying in class. There were a lot of students breaking down at varying times. And I think that students felt safe to break down, if that makes sense. So they felt supported by each other, by me. So there was that. I'm not sure if I'm answering fully, but these are really unusual times.
And for your school specifically for newcomers, for immigrants, some of the questions out there are how can they get their administration and staff to work to put some types of programs together, maybe similar to yours. How do you get the support of your administration?
So, one of the reasons that I wanted, that I mentioned the Antidefamation League and Facing History in Ourselves is that these resources are freely available and respected worldwide. So it's not like I was coming in there with some radical materials that were secret and clandestine. I think that the resources that I'm using, the New York Times Learning Network, like these are all like really respected organizations. And so they're not only that, but they're very savvy in that they'll put Common Core standards alongside of all of their resources. So that's one thing, like if anybody was to question what you were doing, this is all steeped in, really well vetted pedagogy. And so there's that. My principal gives me a pretty wide margin, especially in my human rights class. But at the same time, when we had those letters to Trump, my instinct was, I can't mail these. And I went to talk to him and I said, I can't mail these. And I know that, but I also know that the students really, really want these materials to be read by someone. And he brainstormed with me and said, who are our allies? I think you should write to these people. So yeah.
Do you share your personal story with your students to get them ready?
I do. Yes, I do. Yes.
And let's see. And how are you collaborating with other staff members in your school?
Well, we all talk. I mean, we're a very close staff. There are 25 people in my department alone because I'm in the English language learner, we're teaching the ESL teachers in the school are the biggest department. So we all talk, we all share resources, we all commiserate. I talk to the social studies teachers a lot also. And my classroom is an open, I have very open space in my classroom. So I don't think there should be any secrets in education.
There were a couple questions about modifications. So, students who don't speak English, how do you find translations, or what are some of the methods that you use to work with students who maybe don't have, the writing skills?
Yeah. So, I don't think I would do, formal business letters to a politician with brand new speakers of English. I think that, but I do think that with a small amount of language, spoken word poetry is actually pretty accessible because Luke Nephew, for example, and if you go to his links, he gave us this like really simple structure. I see, and the kids kind of went around the room and talked about what they see around them, and I feel, and so with some basic language, not new. If you're starting out and they have no language, you're not going to be doing this. I'm not going to kid you. Like the kids that I was working with were clearly high intermediate speakers of English. But I do think with a little bit of language, poetry is really accessible, especially basic spoken word poetry where you're giving them a template. I think templates are really good. There are also like great websites with current events that have been modified for English language learners that have lesson plans, and so those are great resources as well.
So I know that you use storytelling in the classroom. Is there any work that you do with parents as well?
I would love to say that I constantly work with parents. I don't. I would love to, and I reach out to the parents all the time, but I will say that this is a challenge in my school. Our parents are really busy. They're working many jobs. We have a lot of parent events. The attendance is not great, and it's just the nature of life right now for them. So no, I'm not doing storytelling with parents, but I did work in adult ESL for many, many years, and I did projects like these. I think it's great to work with adult learners, and I think I would love to work with parents more, and I'm always so happy when they come, but it's in our school in particular, this is an issue.
Now, as a kind of project-based and service learning program, I know your school is kind of built to have this type of enrichment. What do you suggest to teachers who maybe are feeling like they wouldn't have the time to do this?
Well, again, I think simple things like spoken word poetry, I mean, that's not going to take you a really long time, but it's a great way for students to express their feelings. It's very tangible, it's very powerful, and it doesn't take a lot of time. So I think that's a great place to start. I think that any one of the things that I mentioned today, you can pull out and do. You don't have to do it all. Not at all. Pick one little thing that speaks to you. I saw other great ideas going on in the chat rooms about, creating books, which I've done, and creating drama pieces, which would be amazing. We did that, readers theater, all of that kind of stuff is so powerful and really accessible and doesn't take a lot of time.